music today, sorry. Never. I had a song, but it's wasn't really a dance song. It's called Bread of Heaven Comes to You Till I Want No More. It's a song that the Welsh Rugby Club sings before every game they play. And I wanted to play it because South Africa played Australia and we won. And if you're not sure what rugby is, imagine football, and then you take all the pads off, and then you turn it into a 15-man team with two substitutes, and that's rugby, pretty much. That's one of the games I follow. Today I would like to allow us to meditate or contemplate something that the disciples asked Jesus. They asked Jesus for a few things, or to teach him a few things, and one of them was, Jesus, teach us how to pray. Which I think is a good thing to learn from Jesus. They also taught Jesus, teach us how to cast out demons and to heal people like you do. This morning, our text, which is from Luke 17, chapter 5 to 10, they asked Jesus, they said, Jesus, increase our faith, or teach us how to believe more deeply. Which is kind of like a strange thing to ask if you just read the text that we have. But if you go back a couple of verses or some of the stuff that happens before this, it makes a lot more sense. Just before this, Jesus says to them, you need to love your neighbor as yourself, but you know what? Anybody can love your friends or your family. Some families might be a little hard on others, but for the most part, you need to be able to love your family, okay? No matter how strange they are. You know, my family's kind of like the Adams family. Yeah, okay. You have to be mental health to appreciate that. But anyway, well, some people think we're the Brady Bunch, but we're not. We're definitely not Father knows best. But, because he doesn't, according to my girls. But, Jesus says that we need to love your enemies. Who's my enemy? People you don't like, people that are mean to you. If you're a Democrat, I guess that would be Republicans. If you're a Republican, that would be a Democrat. So there's a lot of animosity and hatred in the world. People that don't get along with you, don't believe like you, don't think like you, out to hurt you. And Jesus says, you can't just tolerate it if you go along with them. And the disciples were like, really? Seriously? And remember they said, teach us how to pray. And in that prayer was it, dear Jesus, forgive us the way we forgive our enemies. Well, if you want Jesus to forgive you, that means you have to forgive those people that are being mean to you. Turn the other cheek. Turn it this way, and then turn the other way, and then, okay, now I can fight because I'm out of cheeks. And so they're like, wait, this is getting hard. And then he says to them, I'm going to the cross to die. And I'd like you to take up your cross and follow me. Now for them, that wasn't a cute little thing you wear around your neck. They knew what a cross was. And they were like, we're going to need some more faith. Okay. And so that's what I think many of us are in our church today. Just looking over this small group, the rest of us are at the beach. I know because their parents got beach houses. My mom and dad had a beach house, and I was made well. I have to work for my mom and something. Anyway, I digress. But the beach is a good place to go for your troubles. It is. Jesus hung out on the beach all the time. But back to faith. How do you get more faith? Well, if I look at some other people, there's my Pentecostal friends who have studied for a while, and they said, you know, if you come up to the front of the church and you let people lay their hands on you and they say some weird words over you and bang you on the head, and you get a big old male mark on the back of your head from somebody's ring, and you fall out, you'll get more faith. It might knock you out, and you might sleep pretty good in front of the church, but it's not going to increase your faith. In my humble opinion, it's not going to work. And then I've seen people that fake it in other ways. I was sharing with Jimmy that there was a church in South Carolina, and the preacher came across this wonderful substance called ecstasy, and he would put it in the coffee and the Kool-Aid before church. And so the congregation would come in and get their coffee and Kool-Aid and ecstasy, and about halfway through the church, that ecstasy would kick in, and guess what? They had church. And the more the ecstasy kicked in, the better the church was. And they all felt very healed and good by the end of church, except when the ecstasy wall felt terrible. That's not increasing faith. That's taking advantage of people. And apparently in South Carolina it's really illegal, and that preacher went to jail. Thank you, Jesus. I've also seen people, this was back in South Africa, they came in and they said they're going to heal one person or another person, and maybe one leg was longer than the other, and you would sit on a chair and they would shake your legs and make you one leg as long as the other, and then, you know, by increasing your faith. Found out that was a con. That's not going to increase your faith. In fact, sometimes the preacher would have a little thing like this on his ear, and they would take information down from you, and then they would tell the preacher, and then the preacher would say, in this area, yeah, I think I know a fellow called Stan, and you know, he's trying to at his work right now, and I think he goes to his campus to get away from everything for a while. And if he came up now, we could pray for him. But you see, they were using information already to action. That will not increase your faith. I think one of the things that increases people's faith is real relationships with Jesus. And the only way I can share is share some people that I have grown up that I think has some deep faith. When I was a child, I got my first call from this lady. She was one of the most beautiful Christians I ever knew. She had spinal cancer, and back in the early 70s, you could treat spinal cancer with either with morphine. If the morphine didn't work, you could try morphine. And if the morphine didn't work, you could try morphine. That's all they had. They didn't have the drugs they have now. And we were in South Africa, so we didn't have all the stuff that this wonderful country has. And so my mom would go out, because she was a nurse, and she would go out and give all sorts of medicine to different people. Diabetes medicine, cancer medicine, just, I don't know, everything. And to get their blood work and that, so that they didn't have to come in, and they could stay home and live a halfway comfortable life. Which made my mother do everybody in hard work. And she would go and sit and give this lady her morphine and sometimes a cancer treatment. But she would also sit with this lady and read the Bible. That's they got close, and then she told Mom, this lady that I was looking for a car, and you know when you turn 18 in South Africa, you get your first car, like how you when you were 14. How many of you young boys and girls got your first car yet when you turned 14? How many of you got your driver's license? Big deal, right? Get out and drive. Okay. Well, when you have to, in South Africa, you have to wait until you're 18 to get your car. My first car was a 4-seater. It came in red, brown, and blue, because those are all the colors on the outside. I had to fix the seat with 6 bolts, and I think 3 of the 4 cylinders worked, or 2 of the 4 cylinders worked. Anyway, that was my first car. I paid $100,000 for it. And it could go at top speed of about 30 miles an hour, so my mother liked it. There were a lot of golf carts to pick out for it. I digress. But this lady owned the thing, and she wanted to give it to me. My mom said, no, you've got to sell it to you. But my mother would sit with her, and in spite of all the pain, she would talk about how Jesus was so good to her. And how blessed she was to have people like my mother and her husband and her children come visit her and love her and make her meals and spend time with her. And she talked about how wonderful life was and how blessed she was. And I couldn't see the blessings in her life. But this lady had a deep faith in what God was doing in her life. I was just looking there to see it. I just couldn't understand her faith. I think of the people that I've met in America that have worked in churches like this. People that have worked on the trustees, people that have worked in Methodist men, people that have supported all sorts of youth ministries. One of my favorite persons, Mr. Denny from Louisville Methodist, he'd been divorced and he'd had some hard times. He had his grandkids and he'd bring his grandkids to the playground and with Happy Meals, and they would eat the Happy Meal and we'd play on the playground and he would take them home. It was kind of neat watching this granddaddy taking care of his little grandkids, and I was fun to have them. According to the little girl, he was a superhero. But every Sunday morning, till the day he died, he would go to the donut shop and buy donuts and orange juice and little snacks, and then he would bring them to the church and cut them up and make the coffee and everything, and then he would stop and talk to every one of the children. He knew them by name, he knew their problems, he knew everything going on in his life. When I talked to him, he talked about how he really enjoyed doing ministry for God and how God had blessed him in so many different ways, and how God had delivered him from alcohol and many of the struggles that he had. He truly had a deep faith in God. And so, I think one of the things that if you want to have a deep faith in God, either look at the trouble in your life and see how God is helping you through it. It could be if you're in school, I don't know if you've been bullied or been ostracized, or even if you're one of the most popular kids in the school or college. I think take a look at that and see if God's working with you. And I believe you'll be surprised. I used to keep a journal when I was in college because sometimes, I was in a Bible college by the way, I found a hard time struggling with what was real and what was fake. Because I found many people claim to be close to Jesus, but they were more, in my opinion, using faith to now themselves get ahead. And I wanted to have a real, genuine relationship with Jesus, and I didn't want to take advantage of other people because of my faith. And I still struggle with that today. There are so many other people do something similar. Some of it was financial, some of it was for other reasons. The way I look at it was I used to buy pizza to help me study for my Bible exam. And I noticed I used to have lots of friends when I had my pizza from the pizza shop. But when my pizza disappeared, my friends disappeared. I also noticed that because I was a Methodist in a Pentecostal environment, they had a lot to say about my prayer life and my relationship with Jesus and my lack of need to wear shorts and not to wear shorts, going to the beach and playing cards and some of the other stuff that I thought was inconsequential. You might have trouble with that, young people. You might have people make fun of you because they're atheists and they know everything about what it means and that in God is irrelevant. But you need to remember there are a lot more educated people that do believe in God, like Einstein and others that are a lot more smarter than maybe they were. including your professors. Grown-ups, those are the folks that have children and got grey hair and you've got bald spots, or your hair that's kind of like mine, or mine's getting kind of like yours. Don't give up. I know sometimes you get into fights with your children or young teenagers and you feel like God is not there in your family and you'd like to stick them in a barrel and feed them until they turn about 25. I promise you they do change. I never thought they would for me, but mine did. At about 27, my son came around and he seen some, he doesn't know where I got my wisdom from, it just kind of sprung up overnight. And he's taking a look at Faith once a day. He's like, boy, that Bible's a pretty smart little book, isn't it? I said, yeah, it's not too bad. I'll use it for a while. You will see, as you get older, that God is in your life. One of my favorite stories I stole from a Presbyterian preacher was about this man. And he used to struggle praying and developing faith with God. Until this preacher came and said to him, why don't you put a chair in front of you? And when you talk to him, so imagine Jesus sitting there, and just talk to him like you would talk to your best friend. He said, yeah, I'll give that a try. And he did. And he put his little chair in front of his bed, and he would talk to him every night. Went on for a while. And one day they came in, and he was lying dead with his head in that very same chair. And the maid says, oh, that's one of the strangest ways to die. I've never seen anything that weird. The preacher says, no, I get it. It looks like when he passed away, he took his head and put it into the lap of Jesus and went on to be with the Lord. So that's one of the things I'd like to share with you. The second part is even more difficult. When we become Christian and we give our hearts to Jesus and we work for Jesus and we make him our friend, sometimes we think that, we need to get rewarded for that. We live in this meat generation. We need to get some kind of like prize or, at the end of every year when people roll nominations, that sometimes I feel like I have to write a letter and say, thank you for serving God for so many years and you can do so much for him and maybe have a special dinner for those people before the new crowd rolls on. But Jesus said, when your servants work for you, how many of you have to make payroll? When your people make payroll, you write them a check. You don't tell them, thank you so much for, well, maybe you do, but you don't give them extra work for doing their job. You expect them to do, there's a minimum amount of what they have to do, and when they do it, you pay them, and there's a fair exchange for stuff. And Jesus said something that when your servants prepare your supper and they do everything they're supposed to do, you don't pay them extra because they did what they're supposed to do, and they go over and above, and you might. And he says the same for people that give their life and love to Jesus. There's no extra bigger reward. Another way of putting it, because it sounds kind of cruel and harsh, for many of us baby boomers, there can only be one winner. You play a soccer game, one side wins, one side loses. Play rugby, one side wins, one side loses. There can only be one winner. You can only have one favorite child. How many of your kids ever ask you, who's my favorite? They all think I'm the most favorite. Scarlett, she's my favorite. But with Jesus, we're all his favorites. In the My Generation thing, when you have kindergarten and everybody graduates, everybody gets a prize, right? Everybody gets a certificate, everybody gets a trophy. When you play T-ball, everybody gets a trophy. Am I right? If you play soccer, everybody gets a trophy. There are no losers. And that's not how it is in the real world. But in Jesus' world, it works like that. And what's amazing is when those little kids get the trophy, everybody claps. You see, because each and every one of us is special to Jesus. And when we work in the kingdom of God, each and every one gets a trophy. Because we are all that special to God. And so when Jesus says, you come and work for me, That's the way it works. It doesn't work the same way it does in the kingdom of heaven. So when you do your duty for God and you work hard, you will get deeper faith. That's my last story, and then we'll go into communion. I also stole this one. I'm not smart enough to make it up. In many funerals, they talk about people living a long time and then passing away and going on to be with Jesus. And one of my favorites is sometimes, when you get close to Jesus and you walk with him and you talk with him every day, and he becomes a personal friend of you, there will come a time that Jesus will look at you and say, you know what? I'm going to stand because I think you want to really stand. And I'm not taking up a load right now. We've been walking together and talking a long time. You know what Jesus saying that to you? But today, you're closer to my house than I am to your house. Come, let's just go to my house. And at that point, you pass away and go and spend time with Jesus. And that's what I'm talking about when the disciples said, come and help increase our faith. Our faith is increased by the difficulties we have in life, because the more difficulties we have, guess what? Jesus is there, and he helps us see his hand in some of the difficulties we have, in all the difficulties we have. And some of them are bigger than others. Also, he rewards us in ways that the world doesn't. And the final reward, I think, is when we get to spend eternity with him in heaven. One of the things we do with communion, besides celebrating at the end of service, is try and make it relevant for those that are with us, for Methodism and Wesley. And the whole idea was that they are means of God's grace. They are means of God's grace. In other words, it's a tool to help us experience God's grace on a deeper level. And in this, we find that we learn to participate in God's death and resurrection. And by doing that, we grow in faith. Because it reminds us that, you see, Jesus was broken for us. Because he knew that we would be broken. He was broken for us so that we could be part of that brokenness, and he could be part of our brokenness. Then he was also blessed. He blessed it, and I'll bless it in a few minutes, so that we can experience God's blessing. And as we drink it, in some mysterious way, God comes into us. It's the closest we can do in a physical form, and brings about spiritual healing. Helps our soul in ways that are beyond my ability to explain. Sometimes even helps us physically, so that when we leave here, we know Jesus on a little bit more deeper and personal level. And so this morning when you take communion, I pray that when you participate, that you experience